Hello and welcome to my channel. So, quick little disclaimer on my tablet here. I did a script for today's episode of Nostalgic Idiocy. And so, my quick little disclaimer is that it's not very well put together. It's first time doing it, but since I was actually talking about like technology, um, that I would write a script. And I feel like that was the only way. And so right now, this little disclaimer is the only unscripted part. And the fact that I broke not even really my rule, but like the fourth wall or whatever with this video is kind of a big deal. In the description, there will be the link to the script if you have a hard time hearing me. And if you just, yeah, anyways. So, bleh. Okay, today, hello and welcome. Ignore my cat. Cool. Hello and welcome back to Dead Girls Entertainment. Today's episode of Nostalgic Idiocy is on the forgotten PS Vita. A crazy handheld that lost momentum due to the Nintendo 3DS. I grew up wanting a PlayStation Portable, aka a PSP, and a PlayStation Portable Go, aka a PSP Go, if you're not familiar. Back in 2015, I had a slim PS Vita in the color black with Borderlands 2, and it came with a memory card for Borderlands 2 mainly. So today, we're going to take a look at the PlayStation Vita 2000, or the PS Vita Slim, and talk about how it was forgotten and has now been the most wanted handheld in the handheld gaming community. So sit back, relax, grab some popcorn and a drink because this is going to be a long one. You're currently watching Dead Girls Entertainment, and it's your favorite gay nobody host, Cole Tyler Ellsworth, or Cole Ty Ellsworth. Enjoy the video ghouls, the undead gays, and the beautifully spooky theys. And you are watching Dead Girls Entertainment. So, Chapter 1. What even is a PlayStation Vita? Why is it nostalgic? And so, I guess before I get into all of that, I will show off the Vita. This part is not scripted, but this is the case I got from Amazon. It was like $20. And you could fit, looks like maybe 2, 4, 6. Wait, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, about 12 games on this little top sleeve part. You put the charging stuff in here, and this is the Vita. Okay, so mine's the aqua blue. I do talk about the different colors, and I might be wondering, so why do you have a red shell? Because I'm infamous and I drop things. Yeah, and thank God I have this little strap here. And a cute little phone charm, obviously, because it matches. But this is the PlayStation Vita, and I get into a lot more about the games, which I'll also show off. But I'm going to turn this on. So while that turns on, that'll be over there. So, Chapter 1. What even is a PlayStation Vita? Why is it nostalgic? So, this is titled, What Even is the PlayStation Vita? Why is it nostalgic? I figured I would tell you why it might be nostalgic for some people and what a PlayStation Vita is. Back in May 6, 2014, the PlayStation Vita 2000, or the PS Vita Slim, it had a LCD display, a micro USB charging cord, and it had some sort of solid state drive as well. Its flaw that put the nail in the coffin was a proprietary SD card or a memory card. That cost you just as much as the device. The PS Vita Slim was sold for $199 back in 2014, and that's about $262 with inflation for today. So think of that. Like, this guy was not a very cheap, like, handheld at all. And it had quite a bit of cool features. And I have a cute little Scott Pilgrim theme here. Moving on. And then the proprietary SD/memory cards came in a 4 gigabyte card, which was $29.99, and with inflation today would be $39.47. An 8 gigabyte card, which was $44.99 then, with inflation was $59.22. A 16 gigabyte card, $69.99, and with inflation today, that's about $92.12. And a 32 gigabyte card, this is gonna make y'all be like, okay, 32 gig regular memory cards never cost this much. $119.99, and with today's inflation, that is $157.93. So kind of sit on that. Like, you needed the proprietary, like, memory card for at least for the first gen. This is a second gen. It's all plastic. You have a nice screen. You had the back touch. So, and you had two cameras, a front and a back. Okay. So this thing was pretty, souped up, because even the original PSP didn't have cameras. If you wanted to play that cute little pet game, I think it was literally called iPets, like, you got a camera accessory just to play the game because you needed the camera to play that game. But with this, you didn't need it. So these were needed for you to, the memory cards, they were basically needed if you wanted to download games from the PlayStation Store. And, yeah, these were needed for you to basically download games from the PlayStation Store, to download any games, and needed it even for physical games as well. In other words, you needed them to play with a device. The PS Vita Slim was actually the second gen device too. You had 1 gig of onboard storage, which wasn't nearly enough for you to download a game. So let's say the device is $199 and you get a 32 gig memory card for $119.99 back in 2014. Would have been, $319.98. Would have been about right around the time the PlayStation 3 came out. It would have been about the same price if you were to get this little thing souped up. Now, with today's inflation, it's roughly about $421, $422. That's about how much a Galaxy S23 FE is, if you get it refurbished. So today, this would cost you, honestly, in today's money, with all the fuck-ass inflation, this will cost you just as much as a phone. Which, I mean, granted, you did have models that had 3G, but, that was basically like a moot point, because you had to go through, I think it was like Sprint, and you couldn't really call or text, so having data on this was kind of a moot point. This was, by the way, the regular version. Sony was known to offer, again, 3G data plans for their handhelds too, and that probably would have sent you back like $400 and roughly $500 with inflation. The honest truth is that this device was truly insane for what it was. It needed this proprietary memory card to utilize the device, which hurt itself in the long run as well. You had some PlayStation Vita exclusive as well for games, and one that people talk a lot about is Persona 4 Golden. And I'm just kind of over here like, wait, what about Silent Hill Book of Memories? Silent Hill Book of Memories was a dungeon crawler with a Silent Hill skin placed on top of the creatures. It removes horror, and it gives you some fun horror action. There is times when I play the game, I do nearly almost piss myself, and when I'm not paying attention, when a pterodactyl-looking ass creature jump scares me, I mean, it's a fucking dungeon crawler. So, what the fuck do you expect? So, the nostalgia comes from the fact that the PSP and the PSP Go were very influential and were a big part of the early 2000s. The Vita tried banking on that in a sense, and the PS Vita 1000, or the first in PlayStation Vita, had an OLED display before the Nintendo Switch ever did, or any handheld really. And even its largest competitor in the handheld gaming community, the Nintendo 3DS at the time, PlayStation Vita 1000 had used a proprietary charging cord it needed, the PS Vita memory card, as it had no memory in it, and the first in PS Vita was $249.99. Then, with today's inflation, that's about $329.04. And then, let's just say for shits and gigs, you add the $119.99 32 gig memory card, that sends you about $369.98 without any games, mind you, which was an additional $60. And that game with inflation is about $78.97. And with today's inflation for the PS Vita 1000 or the PS Vita OLED, that's roughly $486.98 with today's cash. Okay, that's how much a smartphone is today. That's how much a Galaxy, again, S23 FE is for like a 128 gig phone, mind you. Okay. Yeah. This device is highly sought after, but fans of the Vita want a new handheld from Sony that wasn't the PlayStation Portal for the PS5, which also kind of low-key fucking flopped, you know. The PS Vita Slim, it did come in a variety of colors too, which attracted people, but they were actually released in Japan, and handheld gaming is such a big thing in Japan as well. The colors released in North America were black, aqua blue, neon orange, and glacier white. I had a black PS Vita Slim back in the day, and it was a bundle I got for Christmas that included the PS Vita Slim in black, an 8 GB memory card, Borderlands 2, a travel case, a screen protector, the charging cord, and a silicone case as well. Sony started to do bundles during the holiday season because they needed to sell the devices, and it was cheaper to get the bundles during the Black Friday season of 2013 a lot of the time. My Borderlands 2 bundle was like $150, which was a good deal back in 2013. Now, with today's inflation, the bundle would cost $200, which honestly costs as much as a Nintendo Switch Lite. The bundle, to me, was a good bang for your buck, and you had a total of savings of $144.98. To purchase each item would have been a total of $294.98, and with the inflation of today, that'd be $394.09, and that's the price of a Nintendo Switch OLED. So, hopefully that all made sense. So, this guy is really cool, okay? You had so much fun little potential with this guy, and I mean, some people like this, some people didn't, but I ate this shit up. So this is what it looks like. You had these little bubbles, okay, and it basically worked. So let's say, let's do, let's do Danganronpa. And so you had this be your little pop-up thing, and then you would just swipe over back to here, but then swipe back here. And if you wanted to close out of something, look at this. It's like a piece of paper. You just tear it back, and it's gone. You had this bubble-like thing, and you had that cool paper tear effect. And I roughly talk about jailbreaking, which mine is, but a lot of the time, what also kind of nipped this thing in the butt was the fact it was easily jailbroken on the first day. And honestly, when I jailbroke this, it was maybe the easiest thing. There is YouTubers out there that talk about how to do it. I'm not gonna be that guy. Yeah, no. So, anyways. So, quick little historical background of the aforementioned PS Vita. Now, again, I have the aqua blue. It's weird because my aqua blue one was Japanese, like the Japanese model, which meant X was not select, O was, and X was your back, which was weird. But when I jailbroke this, I found something that actually fixed the bug that helped switch these buttons around. So X is select, circle is back, the way that it should be. But I don't know why. But, anyways, moving on. Chapter 2. What's the most nostalgic game for the PS Vita Slim? So, this again is all my own opinion. This is nowhere near like fact. Let me make that abundantly clear. Like, there's going to be some games that are nostalgic for others, while these are the games that I remember playing or later on playing due to emulation. So with all of that kind of being said, just kind of bear with me in a way. God damn it. Stupid fucking glasses. Whatever. Anyways, so welcome to chapter 2. If you made it this far in the video, make sure to like, comment, subscribe, share this with your friends. In the crotch bar down below, I will have videos that are way longer probably and will be more of a historical deep dive about the PlayStation Vita. There's like one video that was like an hour, almost 2 hours long. That was basically a fucking documentary, and it was almost like Netflix level of filmed because dude got interviews. Like, it's a good video, and I will make sure to put that in the crotch bar down below. So again, if you made it this far, cool. Thank you. Make sure again to like, comment, subscribe, and moving on. Welcome to Chapter 2. Chapter 2 is titled, What's the Most Nostalgic Game for the Vita? This section is about games that I find nostalgic about the PS Vita Slim, and how each game was eventually ported to Steam, or even the Nintendo Switch. This section, mind you, is all my own opinion, and opinions are what, kids? They're fucking subjective. So, if I don't mention your favorite game, then I'm sorry, but I'm mentioning games I had played, or played games I had, or played myself that make me smile and laugh. The whole point of nostalgia is, and by definition, is a sentimental longing or wistful affection for the past, typically for a period or a place with personal associations. With all that being said, let's get into it, shall we? Game number 1, for me, is Silent Hill Book of Memories. I played Book of Memories a lot when I had my Vita. It was fun, edgy, simple, and you could even play online as well with others if they had the game as well. You play as an avatar of yourself, and you get a mysterious package from the mailman. You get it for your birthday, and you read through it in the beginning, and then start to realize, how does this book know events that are currently happening around me? So, you, as the player, decided to stupidly and naively write in the book, and then you're transported to Silent Hill. You walk up to this creature who gives you missions, and you follow through with them. You defeat monsters in each room, and then you find the mailman again. He explains what is going on, and so then you purchase upgrades for your character, make your way to a gate to do a puzzle. Once you have completed the puzzle, the creature from the beginning gives you a new weapon that does come in handy later on as each level progresses. Silent Hill Book of Memories isn't your typical survival horror and isn't even really your typical Silent Hill game. It's a dungeon crawler with a Silent Hill foreskin wrapped on it. The music is fun, the storyline is interesting, and the bosses are actually kind of hard to defeat. The main storyline is basically you going through and unlocking memories. The Silent Hill game isn't like Silent Hill Shattered Memories that was ported to the original PlayStation Portable, or commonly known as the PSP. The game's Metacritic score is 58%, IGN gave it a 6 out of 10. The game was released on October 24th, 2012. I had fun with this game back in 2015. I got this game for Christmas alongside the bundle I had. I was excited to have two rated mature games as a teen. Mind you, I was like 16 or 17 years old. This was a big deal for my mom to even allow me to play rated mature games, even though I was old enough to play it. Silent Hill Book of Memories is one of my favorite games, and the horror action in it really does make for a fun time. It even had extra downloadable content or DLC. The DLC gave you more costumes, some more in-game stories, and helped a few bugs, and it was free to download too. You didn't need to deal with paying an extra $15 for it like other games do today. I recommend this game for a fun Halloween playthrough. I give this game myself a 7 out of 10, and I hope you enjoy playing it too, if you have a PS Vita OLED or even a PS Vita Slim. And so I guess what I'll do is I will show you the Book of Memories. Where is it? Okay. This is what this looks like. It's super fun. And I don't know if I'm gonna get copyright, so I'm just gonna say, fair use. Fuck off. Okay. And I'm actually hoping that this is mirrored so it doesn't look backwards as I'm filming this. Let's see. Me turning the volume up. I'm probably gonna get so copyrighted. Not gonna lie, load times back in the day weren't the greatest for this guy. Tell me you haven't played a game in forever without telling me you haven't played a game in forever. Okay, well, that's loading. Whatever. Yeah, load times for the Vita, they were fucking great. Like, here we go. So, that's Silent Hill, Book of Memories. Now, okay. You might be wondering, Cole, why are you wearing a bucket hat? You look like a douche. And to that I say is, fuck off. Like, I don't know. Anyways, so moving on to game number 2. Okay. Unironically, my number 2 game to mention on this nostalgic list is Borderlands 2. Borderlands 2 for the PS Vita was a big deal. It was widely popular back in 2014, and I love the fact that the comedy in it was slapstick as hell. Now, that would have been what I thought if the game would have loaded onto my Vita and didn't make my Vita fucking crash. Borderlands 2 was indeed a buggy as fuck game, and I only got to play it for an hour before the game crashed. I checked the game to see if it would have needed an update, and it didn't have one. I turned my Vita on and off, rebooted the game, and it didn't load. I was devastated. I was given a free 8GB PSV memory card, and this game alongside its obnoxious fucking DLC. The game wouldn't load at all. I was crushed. I enjoyed the game for that hour of gameplay, but I felt like I was given a demo for this massive game that all my friends were playing at the time. It also didn't help that Wi-Fi basically made this game playable. So literally jump almost a decade later when I finally got a PS Vita in aqua blue color, brand new in box from Amazon for like $190 and then jailbroke the thing and added a PS Vita to SD memory card. I was able to download the game once again alongside all the DLC, and the game played. I was even able to find codes online to get more free items. It looked like the Borderlands 2 servers weren't severed for the PS Vita. I played it for the 1 hour that I remember it crashing at one point, and lo and behold, the game didn't crash this time. It was as if jailbreaking my PS Vita made the game playable, and then I could enjoy the game 10 years later. I played it just in time for the Borderlands movie that was released this year that apparently flopped hard, that I still haven't seen. Borderlands 2 for the PS Vita was fun, but the controls were janky due to the fact you needed to use the back touch screen that I was surprised I didn't have a seizure. I got flustered and then bored with the game after the 5th hour of playing. I hadn't played the game since then, and give me another decade and I'm sure I will feel nostalgia for it then. Borderlands 2 for the PS Vita was released back in May 13th, 2014, and IGN gave it a 5.4 out of 10. Metacritic gave it a 64% back in May of the same year. I enjoyed the dialogue, the story was fun, but the gameplay ate ass in a not so fun way. I think the reason why I have nostalgia for this game because it was the first game I ever had back when I got my Vita. I give it a rating of 6 out of 10 because I think the game's graphics were ahead of the time for a handheld, and the Nintendo 3DS didn't even have a large high quality game that was on the Xbox 360 and the PS3. So with that all being said, let's move on to number 3. And I'm going to take a quick moment. I'm going to pause. There's going to be a weird jump cut. I'm going to pause. And I'm going to do adult things. I need nicotine. So I'm going to pause this for a second. And so again, bear with me. And it's funny. We're only 8 pages in to the script. This is almost 20 pages. So I'm going to pause and then I'll be right back. Okay, now on to game number 3. Number 3 is Resident Evil Revelations 2. Resident Evil Revelations 2 released back in February 24th, 2015 on the PS Vita digital storefront and had a physical release date of August 18th, 2015. Metacritic gave it a 75% and IGN gave it a 7 out of 10. Resident Evil Revelations 2 was a game I had played. Resident Evil Revelations 2 was a game I had played because the first game was on the Nintendo 3DS, and I'll get back to that. and when I saw that Revelations 2 wasn't coming to the 3DS and to the Vita instead, I asked my mom to get the game for me, and she agreed. I played this game, and I had a lot of fun with it. I recently started to play it on my new jailbroken PS Vita, and I still had the unhinged anxiety that it initially gave me back in 2016 when I had the game. I started to play it again, and then I completely had forgotten the plot of the first Resident Evil Revelations for my Nintendo 3DS, and then decided to go on YouTube and watch a recap of the first game to be prepared to play RE Revelations 2. Once again. Mind you, it's been nearly 8 years since I had played the first game, if not even longer. I have always held a special place in my heart for anything in the Resident Evil franchise, and I feel like I'm one of the few people who actually love the films directed by Paul W. Sanderson, the Netflix show back in 2022, and even the Capcom animated films. I'd even say Resident Evil Welcome to Raccoon City back in 2021 was a fun time. So when I booted up Revelations 2, I was excited. The game still holds up today on the Vita. It never had any issues for me while playing it. It did utilize the back touchscreen to aim, but somehow it felt less janky than it did for Borderlands 2. That may have been I had aim assist to help, but even then it didn't automatically aim and shoot for me. The survivor horror was still there, and I had a lot of fun. I give this game an 8.5 out of 10. I didn't finish the game because I got ADHD distracted, kids, by my number 4 choice. I'm planning in October of this year to try and beat the game and then tell you what I think from that point on. Now, onto game number 4. My fourth choice isn't actually a Vita game, but was ported to it as a downloadable game for cheap. And that was the most shocking game back when it was released, and that game is Dante's Inferno. That was ported to the PlayStation Portable. I remember the marketing for the game and how unhinged it was. You had some of the weirdest creatures too for the game, and the graphics were great for a ported game for the OG PlayStation Portable. Dante's Inferno was a hack and slash with some fun gore. I enjoyed the game, and I played Dante's Inferno emulated on my Ambernic RG405M and had beat the game on it. So I had replayed it on my Vita, and it was nice to play it on a handheld that was meant for the game to be played on. This game has nostalgia for me because I remember my peers in middle school talking about the game. I watched the movie, the animated movie, I read the comic, and then played it on my dad's PlayStation 3 before I had ever played the PSP port. I give Dante's Inferno a 7.5 out of 10 because I think the game is really dated, and if it was remastered for newer system and gets a sequel, it truly deserves its flowers. Make sure to check out Dante's Inferno for the PSP, and now onto my fifth and final nostalgic video game for the PS Vita. The fifth and final game I would like to mention is Akiba's Trip Undead and Undressed. Akiba's Trip Undead and Undressed was released back on August 12th, 2014 for the PlayStation Vita. This game is the weirdest game and the most out of fucking pocket shit for a video game, and has some of the funniest dialogue too. You basically play as yourself, okay, and you've become a vampire. You fight other vampires, and the little twist is you have to strip their clothes off to kill them. Yeah, you heard that right. You gotta take their clothes off. Mind you, the women, they still have their bras on and underwear. Now, with the men, they're down to their second undies. Okay, my dudes? It's a beat 'em up that takes place in China, or maybe even Japan. I'm not quite sure, because Akiba is a made-up place, and talks about stan culture, especially with how K-pop is. Yes, I know there are two different things and different cultures, but with how K-pop stans are, it makes fun of that whole idea of idols. And the game honestly was so ahead of its time too. The game was later ported or even remade and is on the Nintendo Switch called Akiba's Trip Director's Cut Undead and Undressed. This game honestly deserves its recognition, and I recommend it to anyone who wants some campy, sexy fun. I also forgot the soundtrack is also fucking great. I mean, you've got the Vocaloid Hatsumiku on the soundtrack, so I definitely want people to actually play this game. Now, if I have K-pop stans come for me, I'm sorry, I'm not trying to shit on you. Play the game. That's all I'm gonna say. And I might honestly, if I know how to screen record, I might screen record some clips and have them be like a different little like bonus section. Okay. Chapter 3. So, why did the PlayStation Vita flop? Was it really ahead of its time back in 2014? So, the PlayStation Vita Slim was a device ahead of its time back in 2014, and was released at the wrong time and honestly, the wrong place. When the device was announced back in 2012, Sony had said that the Vita meant life, and the lifespan for the PS Vita wasn't very long-lived. I think that's when the first gen of the PS Vita was an OLED screen, and that was a selling point. Mind you, OLED televisions didn't become a big thing until the year 2015. My research, though, just for a quick disclaimer, could be wrong. All I ask is you research it yourself instead of coming from my throat. The PS Vita OLED was ahead of its time and had some cool features to it as well. Then, in 2014, the PS Vita Slim came out, and that removed the OLED display and in favor of a LCD display, and instead of an aluminum frame to a bright, colorful plastic frame. Yeah, that's a downgrade, but at this point, the Nintendo 3DS was kicking Sony's ass in the handheld gaming department. Sony, trying to save the Vita from an already sinking ship, released a PlayStation Vita TV. The PlayStation Vita TV was basically your typical streaming device, but could play PS Vita games on it, and even then the list of games that were compatible with the PlayStation Vita TV weren't due to the fact that the Vita games relied on the controls on the handheld. The PlayStation Vita TV sadly also meant its end, like the aforementioned handheld that it was named after. The PS Vita's life came to an end back in 2019, being completely discontinued. So think of that. We're in 2024. Like, it was completely discontinued in the height of the pandemic. So it's been almost 5 years that this device has been completely discontinued. So you might be wondering, what the fuck happened to the PlayStation Vita, and why did it not succeed like the PlayStation Portable back in the early 2010s? The easiest way, I meant to say early 2000s, but whatever. The easiest way I can say this is, once again, the Nintendo 3DS was released. Yes, the 3DS killed Sony's PlayStation Vita. Sony and Nintendo's beef goes all the way back, and honestly, I'm not the one to give you the complete 411 on the decades-long beef the two had. So, of course, Nintendo came out victorious in handheld gaming back in 2012 to 2016. Here's what I found by Googling why the PS Vita had flopped, and I'll tell you what I think about the points. So, mind you, when I googled this, it did give me the AI generated answer, and I was like, whatever. I'm not gonna do too much research on this. I'm exhausted. This script took me I started this script literally Monday, and I finished it today. So it took me a week to finish the script. Okay, so please bear with me. Point number one from Google was lack of interest from Sony. Sony's first-party teams lacked interest in the PS Vita, which led third-party developers to feel it wasn't worth developing for. This left the PS Vita without a strong software library. So, my thoughts on this are, that seems pretty fair. Sony failed to promote, market, and hype this product up. The gaming library was odd because you didn't really have a lot of gaming titles. The PS Vita became a handheld for indie developers. We have Stardew Valley on the PS Vita and Salt and Sanctuary. You had big name games like Little Big Planet PS Vita, Uncharted, and Gravity Rush. Sony really tried to have this handheld succeed, but while it became clear that they didn't care about the device and accepted the fact that the 3DS would ruin their precious handheld. Point number two from Google said, competition. The PS Vita faced competition from smartphones and Nintendo's 3DS platform. That's also pretty valid why it failed. I mean, smartphones at the time were taking over handheld gaming, in a sense. You had Resident Evil 4 Mobile and Dead Space Mobile at the time on the likes of iPhone and Samsung Galaxy devices. You also started to have the first generation of tablets come out as well. The Vita was released at the time when smartphones started to become popular. You could get a smartphone for the price of a PlayStation Vita, and getting a smartphone was universally understood to be better than a handheld gaming console. Where PS Vita fucked up once again, though, was marketing. And that's because there wasn't really any for the device. You could get a PS Vita with a 3G data plan, but that even then wasn't really worth it because you couldn't really call your friends/family unless you had Skype, and they too had Skype. Skype is also another bonus topic I want to talk about later on. So, quick little tangent, because I completely glossed over that I wrote that. So, Skype, if you don't know, was a video calling service. You could also voice chat. It's a lot like your WhatsApp, your Messenger, Zoom, what have you. And so Skype was basically a way you could communicate, and since this had a front-facing camera and a back camera, you could Skype people on this, but you needed Wi-Fi. But if you had a data plan, then you didn't need to. But even then, Skype is kind of the past. I mean, Skype is still usable. You can still use it. I remember being obsessed with Skype, and my friend and I would Skype because we were like MySpace kids. But we would literally use Skype just for the emo emoji, because there was literally an emo emoji where it's like a little yellow guy, and it had a little animation where it would have its bang cover its eyes, and it would go whatever. It was iconic. So that's my talking point for Skype that I never even mentioned later on, for some reason, because I'm a fucking idiot. Moving on. Point number three from Google was design. Some say the PS Vita's design was too similar to the PSP. So I'm going to have to disagree with this point, actually, because what? I mean, what made the PSP iconic was the fact that the shape of it and how you could play almost AAA games on the device. The Vita's design kept its shape of the PSP but added more features to the device. The PS Vita had a built-in front and rear camera used for augmented reality gaming, a back touchscreen used for first person shooters and for other features for certain games. The Vita also had a touchscreen and didn't use the good old fashioned UMDs for the games, and instead went for the size of a Nintendo Switch cartridge. The design was different enough and had more features in it as well. I think why the PS Vita flopped wasn't because the design was too similar, but because it did have these weird, drastic changes. That's at least my opinion, anyways. Point number 4 from Google says lack of support. Some say the PS Vita lacks support from Sony and other developers. This point I would somewhat agree to disagree with in a way. The PS Vita had enough support, but not nearly enough like the Nintendo 3DS and even the original PSP had. Sony seemed focused on being innovative with their handheld more than the game's library. I mean, eventually a lot of indie developers actually started to take over the device, and that helped its longevity, but not in North America, but in Japan. The PS Vita had Stardew Valley and Salt and Sanctuary, as I mentioned earlier. The PS Vita ended up still getting games until honestly like 2019 is when the last game was posted or on the store. The PS Vita had its fair share of games, but nothing could compare. See, Sony suffers from not having an actual mascot like Nintendo does. When you think of Nintendo, the first thing you're gonna either think of is Mario or Link from Legend of Zelda. Sony's mascot was Sackboy from the Little Big Planet franchise, but now their mascot is this weird little white and blue robot to market the PlayStation 5 and the PlayStation Portal. When you don't have a face for your products and don't have enough money to pay developers for games, your handheld will indeed fail. Point number 5 from Google is early sales. The PS Vita struggled with poor sales early on due to a misconception that there weren't enough games available for the system. Just let that sink in. People, due to a misconception that there weren't enough games available for the system. Okay, this seems like deflection on Sony's behalf, actually, because the PS Vita didn't have that many games at launch. You had Uncharted, Golden Abyss, Little Big Planet PS Vita, Gravity Rush, and possibly an Invisibles game. Those were the 4 headliners for the system, back when the first gen was released, mind you. It wasn't until later on in the years they started to announce other games. Yes, we had the aforementioned Resident Evil Revelations 2, Silent Hill Book of Memories, and Salt and Sanctuary, just to name a few, but even then, a lot of the games were also not being marketed, hence why the device flopped. It wasn't because fans didn't want the device, it's because Sony had no fucking clue what to do. So they fucking abandoned ship. They also failed to mention in any marketing that the Vita would have PlayStation classics, original PS1 games like Resident Evil Director's Cut, and many other classic PlayStation games, PlayStation Portable classics, original PSP games made for the PSP, ported over, and some were even remastered. You had games like Dante's Inferno and Silent Hill Shattered Memories be one of the few ported over, and PlayStation Minis. PlayStation Minis were small bite-sized games initially made for the PSP Go that were about the size of a mobile game or app for your smartphone. PlayStation Minis almost all were ported over to the Vita, but were only available digitally instead of physical copies, hence why it's an app, basically. What also didn't help with the fact they didn't have a Monster Hunter game to their name either. Every generation of PSP had a Monster Hunter game to their name. This sold big for the OG PSP, and since they didn't renew their licensing deal with Capcom, Nintendo got their hands on the licensing for the Monster Hunter IP, and that's how we got Monster Hunter Stories for the Nintendo 3DS. That's what actually hurt the Vita. Not shitty sales or even fuck-ass misconceptions, but the very fact they weren't on top of their A game with Capcom. Like I said, Google or even Sony, if they said it flopped due to misconceptions and try to blame the fans, eat my ass because you failed to market this thing properly to begin with. Point number 6, stated by Google, is demographic. Sony attempted to turn things around by shifting their focus away from the mainstream and targeting the more hardcore gaming market. They focus on obscure indie games and mid-level Japanese developed games. I mean, that makes sense, to be honest. I think, though, that this was a smart move to do so. I mean, look at how massive Stardew Valley and Salt Sanctuary are still doing. Look at how many people were able to play a new niche gaming title that were small that have gotten bigger now within the last several years. Like I said, Sony had big plans for this thing, but they didn't want it to live on in the future. Sony wrecked their plans and, in turn, hadn't realized how beloved this thing is now, in the year of 2024. Many fans want Sony to make a handheld again, because they miss that nostalgia for the PlayStation Portable for the PSP, and for the PlayStation Vita to make a comeback. I know Sony released a PlayStation Portal, but it's basically a fucking Nintendo Wii U control pad that mirrors PlayStation 5 games, and it doesn't do it well. That thing isn't a handheld by its true nature. It looks like a tablet with Switch Joy-Cons attached to it, in all honesty. My point, though, is that people within the retro gaming community use the Vita to jailbreak it and play Game Boy Advance games, NES, and more. You even have fans within the community who make ports of mobile games on the Vita, like Bully Mobile and Dead Space Mobile. Hopefully, my madman ramblings make some sort of fucking sense. So with that all being said, the Vita was a great device. Sony really just didn't know what to do with it. And I mean, I think the fact to what really hurt it was you could jailbreak it on the first day. You did have a large gaming library, but at the same time, they weren't marketing anything. At E3, at whatever, no gaming event, they weren't really showing anything off. And if I'm wrong, please let me know in the crotch bar down below, because I remember the Vita being a thing, and then seeing my friend have one, and then being like, oh, I want one. Like, the Vita didn't have the marketing the way that the fucking PSP did. Anybody remember that weird, like, little gag that they did, where it's like, oh, I want a PSP for Christmas. Anybody remember that marketing, where it was like a blog and a YouTube, and it was like a thing, and everybody was like, oh, this can't be real, but then it turned out it was just marketing for the PSP, for sales for the OG PSP to, like, do well? No? Just me? Okay. So, I guess that leads to the end of the video. So, I hope this episode of Nostalgic Idiocy was informative and fun for you. I think with the idea of nostalgia is that what makes you happy or reminds you of simpler times. The PS Vita meant life, and if Sony ever feel the need to make a handheld, they need to market it and make it like a smartphone and make it so you can use a proprietary memory card as an option, and have the device have onboard storage of 256 gigabytes. Have it remain the same and have it be a big deal. Market the thing. You have brands like the GPD Win 4 and the AYN Odin 2 Mini that share the shape and vibes with the PlayStation Portable and the PS Vita. I just want to say a special shout out to my subscribers and thank you for watching Dead Girls Entertainment. This episode of Nostalgic Idiocy was fun to research. I felt like I needed to write a script for this episode because it is technology, and this is me testing the waters to see how well possibly a Dead Girls tech channel would work. I don't want anyone to feel overwhelmed or annoyed with how things are run. The next episode is going to be a doozy, though. It's going to be on the entirety of the Buffy the Vampire Slayer franchise. That'll include the games, comic books, television show, books, and so much more. I think the Buffy episode will be broken into 2 parts, only because it's a lot to go through. Friday's YouTube video will be the unboxing of my Shein clothing, and that shouldn't be as long as my Temu haul video. Temu haul video. So, you've been watching Dead Girls Entertainment, and I will see you ghouls, undead gays, and spooky theys later. Please make sure to like the video, comment on the episode, and share the nostalgia with others. Spread love, not hate. Remember to be kind to one another, and opinions are what, kids? They're subjective. Bye bye for now. Love you guys.